The royal court of Zarithia was a place of wonder and fear all at once. Towering columns of polished crystal stretched high above the heads of the assembled guests, reflecting the soft glow of floating energy lights that hovered like silent sentinels. The air shimmered with a faint hum of alien technology, subtle enough to be ignored but present in every movement, every whisper. The court was full of beings of every imaginable shape and color, some with wings, some with limbs that bent in angles humans could barely comprehend. They wore elaborate robes and ornaments that gleamed in the artificial light, showing their status, their wealth, and their influence. At the center of it all was Princess Lyra, a figure of grace and authority, known for her intelligence, her charm, and her unshakable control over the council. It was the day of the annual Unity Ceremony, when the princess publicly recognized the achievements of the council and honored the citizens who contributed most to the kingdom. The event drew dignitaries from across the galaxy, each with expectations and ambitions carefully hidden behind polite smiles. The court was packed, the air electric with anticipation. Lyra moved with her usual elegance, her eyes scanning the crowd, her voice calm and commanding as she delivered words of praise and encouragement. Ethan, the human guard, observed quietly from his post near the edge of the hall. He was one of the few humans ever assigned to such a high-ranking position in an alien court. Most beings treated him with skepticism, some with outright disdain. A human, after all, was considered fragile, limited in both strength and intellect. Ethan knew this. He had learned long ago not to argue with assumptions. Instead, he relied on his own senses, observation, and reasoning. The ceremony progressed smoothly, with applause and quiet murmurs filling the hall. The princess approached the central dais, where a delicate holographic projection displayed the names and images of those she intended to honor. She reached out to touch the projection, and a soft glow responded beneath her fingers. Everything seemed normal, yet in an instant everything changed. Princess Lyra faltered. One moment she stood with poise, the next she collapsed forward, her body striking the floor with a soft thud that echoed unnaturally in the vast chamber. Gasps filled the room, a collective intake of breath that seemed to shake the walls themselves. The council members froze, their wide eyes reflecting shock and disbelief. Some turned pale, their faces twisting with worry. Others whispered frantically to one another, fear and confusion written plainly across their features. Ethan reacted immediately. Humans were smaller, weaker, but he had trained for emergencies, for moments when speed, awareness, and calm could make the difference between life and death. He rushed to the princess's side, moving through the startled crowd with efficiency. Alien guards attempted to close in, but their movements were heavy, slow compared to his. He knelt beside Lyra, gently checking for consciousness and vital signs. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Her pulse was faint but present. Nothing appeared to be broken, no blood, no obvious injury. Yet she had fallen and no one understood why. The council erupted into speculation. "Poison! She must have been poisoned!" shouted a tall being with crystalline arms. "Sabotage! Someone tampered with her chair," hissed another, a creature whose eyes reflected constantly shifting colors. "It is the work of dark technology," whispered an elder, his tone trembling with fear. All were loud, all were wrong, or at least none had evidence. Ethan stayed silent. His mind moved faster than the chaos around him. He noted details others overlooked. A faint residue on the floor where Lyra's hand had brushed. A small shift in the energy pattern of the projection as she touched it. The way the courtier standing near the dais, tall, composed, with a subtle smirk, seemed unconcerned, even almost pleased. Humans might be underestimated, but Ethan had learned to see patterns, to read subtle cues that others missed. While the council argued, Ethan carefully stood, guiding the princess to a secure chamber where her personal medics could examine her without interruption. Their alien equipment scanned her from head to toe, yet found nothing. No foreign substances, no toxins, no hidden devices. The council grew restless outside, their discussions growing louder, more frantic. Ethan, however, could not ignore what he had noticed. The residue on the floor, barely visible, pulsed faintly in the presence of the medics, scanning devices. He crouched, examining it with his own eyes, his fingers hovering above it. It felt almost alive, but not in the way organic life was alive. It was more like a tool, a piece of technology that could interact with a nervous system. He had no idea who had placed it, but he was certain it was linked to Lyra's fall. He retraced her steps, moving quietly through the ceremonial hall. The other guards and council members were too busy with panic and accusations to notice his investigation. Ethan observed the holographic projection once more. It was smooth, unassuming, but there was something off in the way the light flickered near one of the edges. His human intuition whispered that the device responsible for Lyra's collapse had been subtle, designed to escape notice by beings accustomed to more obvious threats. Hours passed. The princess rested, still pale, still confused. Outside, the council remained in turmoil, their speculation growing wilder. Some accused rival factions, others blamed foreign dignitaries, yet no one considered that the solution might come from a human, an outsider, someone they regarded as inferior. Ethan's investigation deepened. He examined every object she had touched, every step she had taken before collapsing. His eyes caught a tiny device hidden beneath the floor panel near the dais. It was nearly invisible, camouflaged perfectly against the crystal surface. The device pulsed faintly, synchronized with the holographic projection. Ethan's heart raced. He had never seen technology exactly like this, yet his instincts told him its purpose. It was a neural manipulator, designed to influence the nervous system subtly, inducing collapse without leaving visible marks. He realized the danger was not limited to Lyra. Anyone could fall victim, and the culprit could strike again at any moment. But who had the knowledge and access to install such a device? Ethan considered the council members, their ambitions, their jealousy, and their rivalries. He thought of the tall courtier who had smirked, unconcerned by the chaos. Something in his instincts told him that person was involved, perhaps even orchestrating the entire event. Ethan needed proof. He could not confront the council blindly. He returned to the princess, who was now awake, her eyes bright with concern but still weak. She trusted him, though she did not yet fully understand why. "Can you tell me exactly what happened?" he asked quietly. I was standing and then everything went dark," Lyra said. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. "I don't remember falling." "Why would someone want to harm me? Who could have done this?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know yet, Your Highness, but I believe I can find out. I need to see the dais, the projection, everything you touched before you fell." She nodded weakly. "I trust you, Ethan. You are different, calm, precise. I don't know why, but I feel you can solve this." With the princess's approval, Ethan returned to the ceremonial hall, now empty except for maintenance drones and a few cautious guards. He carefully examined the floor panel, the projection device, and every object in the immediate area. His human senses, often dismissed in a world of superior alien perception, detected subtle vibrations, minute energy pulses, and irregularities in the materials. It took hours of meticulous observation, but Ethan's patience paid off. He traced the neural manipulator's signal to a concealed storage compartment behind a decorative column. Inside was a control device, small but sophisticated, clearly designed to be operated remotely. The realization hit him. The princess had been targeted, not randomly, but deliberately, and the perpetrator had knowledge of both the court's layout and the princess's routine. Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. He considered the motives of each council member, each courtier, each dignitary present at the ceremony. He remembered the smirk, the way one courtier had seemed oddly calm, almost satisfied. The evidence, subtle but undeniable, pointed to that individual. As the day turned to evening, Ethan prepared for the next step. He would need to confront the culprit carefully to avoid triggering retaliation or panic. He knew the council would resist, would deny, would attempt to maintain control through intimidation. But he also knew something else. Humans were underestimated, and their greatest strength lay in observation, intuition, and action when others were blinded by arrogance. The princess, now recovering under the watchful eyes of her medics, glanced toward Ethan. "Do you know who did this?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "Not yet, but I'm close. The truth is here, hidden in plain sight. Someone in this court thought they were clever. They will be surprised to learn that a human sees more than they think." As the palace quieted, Ethan lingered in the ceremonial hall, studying the shadows and the faint pulse of the neural manipulator. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The next move would be dangerous, but he had no choice. The court's safety, the princess's life, and the integrity of the kingdom depended on him, and he was determined to succeed. Somewhere in the darkness he sensed movement, a figure observing him, calculating, waiting. Ethan's hand hovered near his concealed weapon, but he did not act rashly. Patience was a human virtue, one the aliens often underestimated. He would wait, watch, and strike at the right moment. The court had seen the fall, but it had not yet seen the rise, the human who would uncover the truth and reveal the cunning behind the attack. And Ethan was ready. Ethan stood in the quiet ceremonial hall, eyes fixed on the faint pulse of the neural manipulator. The glow of the device reflected off the polished crystal floors, casting strange shadows that flickered like restless spirits. He knew the culprit was clever, patient, and had studied the court's routines closely. But cleverness did not equal perfection. Humans had a unique advantage, the ability to notice the things that others overlooked. He crouched beside the device, examining its controls. The technology was alien, complex, but Ethan could understand its function. It manipulated neural signals subtly, enough to induce collapse without any visible effect. He had seen similar principles in Earth technology, though nothing as advanced or discreet as this. His mind worked through possibilities, thinking step by step. The first thing was motive. Who wanted the princess incapacitated? There were rivals in the council, ambitious individuals with long memories of old grudges. There were foreign dignitaries, invited under the guise of diplomacy, who might have desired chaos to weaken the kingdom. And then there were courtiers who operated in the shadows, quietly influencing events for personal gain. One figure stood out in Ethan's mind, the tall courtier who had smirked during the princess's fall, calm and almost satisfied amidst the panic. That smirk had told Ethan everything he needed to know, but suspicion alone was not proof. Ethan needed evidence. Carefully, he traced the device's signal, which led him to a concealed compartment behind a decorative column. His fingers brushed the edge, feeling a tiny seam, almost imperceptible. With precise movements, he opened it to reveal a small, sophisticated control module. It was delicate, intricate, and obviously designed to be portable, easy to hide, and easy to activate remotely. He studied the module, noting its unique patterns, its pulse sequence, and how it had been triggered. Then he thought of the courtier. Only someone with knowledge of both the ceremony and the princess's routine could have placed it so perfectly. Ethan's instincts told him he was correct, but he still needed confirmation. He set the module aside carefully, hiding it under his cloak. If the courtier suspected he had discovered anything, confrontation would be dangerous. Ethan decided to observe first, gather more information, and wait for the right moment. He moved silently through the hallways, blending with the shadows, his human senses alert for any anomaly. Meanwhile, the princess, now recovering in her chambers, requested his presence. She was still weak, but her eyes shone with intelligence and curiosity. "Ethan," she said softly. "I do not understand why someone would do this. I have honored many in this court, and yet someone tried to harm me. How can one be so cruel?" Ethan looked at her calmly. "It is not cruelty, Your Highness. It is ambition and jealousy. Someone thought they could achieve power by destabilizing you, but they underestimated one thing: human observation. I have found the device, and I believe I know who is responsible." The princess's brow furrowed. "Who? Tell me. I will not accuse without proof, but I will confront the culprit when the moment is right." She nodded, trusting him. "I have seen what you can do, Ethan. You see details others miss. You think clearly when all else is chaos. That is why I trust you." Ethan bowed slightly. "I will not fail, Your Highness." Over the next several hours, he observed the court's activities from hidden vantage points. He noticed subtle signals from the council members, gestures and expressions that hinted at unease. His eyes continually returned to the tall courtier, who moved with an air of controlled arrogance. Every step, every glance, seemed calculated, as though he knew something and wanted to conceal it. Ethan decided it was time to act. He returned the neural manipulator module to a hidden location, then carefully placed surveillance devices nearby. These were simple human contraptions, small cameras and sensors he had improvised. Nothing in the court expected such primitive, human ingenuity, and that was precisely why it would work. As the day drew to a close, the princess returned to the ceremonial hall to oversee minor preparations for the following day. Ethan remained close, hidden behind a column. He watched as the courtier approached the dais, seemingly unaware that someone was observing him. The moment was tense, each second stretching endlessly. Then it happened. The courtier reached for the module, adjusting its settings. His hand hovered over the control device, activating a signal intended to replicate the earlier collapse. In that instant, Ethan triggered his surveillance system, capturing every movement, every signal, every detail. The courtier froze as the hidden cameras illuminated his actions. There was no time for denial, no chance to hide. The evidence was clear, undeniable. Ethan stepped forward, his presence suddenly commanding attention. "Stop," he called, his voice echoing through the hall. The council members turned, startled. The courtier froze, his smirk disappearing instantly. "Who are you to speak?" demanded a member of the council, but Ethan ignored them. His eyes were locked on the courtier. "You attempted to harm the princess. You used this device to manipulate her nervous system and cause her to collapse." He held up the control module. "I have proof." Gasps filled the room. The council murmured in confusion and disbelief. The courtier's composure faltered, his eyes darting around for a solution, but Ethan's human logic was too fast. "You were clever," Ethan continued, "but not careful enough. You underestimated observation, intuition, and patience, and you underestimated a human." The courtier attempted to deny it, but Ethan's evidence was undeniable. The surveillance footage showed his precise movements, his manipulation of the device, and the intent behind his actions. The council watched, stunned, as their own member was revealed as the culprit. Princess Lyra stepped forward, still weak but determined. "Ethan," she said, her voice firm, "you were right. This human has outsmarted one of the most cunning beings in our court. You have my gratitude and the gratitude of this entire kingdom." Ethan nodded humbly. "I did what needed to be done, Your Highness. The court's safety comes first." The council member was taken into custody, their protests ignored. The other members looked at Ethan with a mixture of awe, fear, and newfound respect. Humans, they realized, were not to be underestimated. They had subtle strengths, unique perspectives, and the courage to act when others hesitated. In the days that followed, Ethan continued to serve as the princess's personal guard, but his role evolved. He was no longer seen as an outsider or a mere human. The council acknowledged his intelligence, his intuition, and his bravery. Even the princess relied on his counsel, recognizing the value of human reasoning in a court dominated by alien complexity. The princess recovered fully, her strength returning with each passing day. She continued her duties with renewed confidence, but she always remained aware of the danger that lurked in ambition and jealousy. Ethan's presence was a constant reassurance, a reminder that even in a court of extraordinary beings, human ingenuity could prevail. Ethan himself did not boast of his achievements. He knew that humans were often underestimated and that humility was a strength. But he also knew that observation, patience, and careful reasoning could change outcomes that seemed impossible. In a court full of power, deception, and ambition, he had proven that humans could rise to challenges others thought beyond their reach. One evening, as the sun set outside the palace, casting long shadows across the crystal columns, the princess approached Ethan. "You have done more than protect me," she said softly. "You have shown this court that courage and intelligence are not defined by size, strength, or species. Humans are remarkable." Ethan smiled faintly. "I only did what I had to, Your Highness. I acted because it was necessary, not because I sought praise." The princess nodded, a quiet understanding passing between them. In that moment, the court was no longer just a place of politics and power. It was a place where the unexpected could happen, where a human guard could change the fate of an entire kingdom through observation, intelligence, and bravery. Ethan looked toward the horizon, thinking of the future. He knew challenges would come again, threats both visible and hidden. But he also knew that he was ready. For in a world filled with beings who relied on power, humans had one advantage that no technology could replicate: the mind. And the human mind, when sharpened by courage and purpose, could overcome even the most cunning of foes. The court had been shocked by the princess's fall, but it was even more shocked by the rise of a human who had solved the mystery. And Ethan, quietly, with calm determination, had proven that even in the most alien of worlds, humanity could shine brighter than anyone expected. As night fell over the palace, the lights of the crystal columns glowing softly, the court settled into an uneasy peace. But peace, Ethan knew, was not guaranteed. There would be new threats, new schemes, and new ambitions, and when they arrived, he would be ready. For now, though, he allowed himself a quiet satisfaction. The princess was safe, the culprit exposed. And the court, for the first time, had truly recognized the value of a human mind. Ethan, standing tall despite his smaller frame, understood that this was only the beginning. The court had learned a lesson: never underestimate a human. And humans, he reflected, could indeed change the course of history, even in a world as alien and complex as Zarithia.